I want to show you a really quick way to test out software on your computer, especially if you have a Linux computer available to you or a machine with WSL, for instance, that also runs Linux. This gives you a complete environment, ephemeral VM that you can either keep for as long as you want or throw away after you've run a single task or tested a single pull request or a new build of a product. Now, I have a Linux computer here that I set up earlier, and on the left hand side we can see the Slicer homepage. Slicer is a product that we released that allows you to do what Docker did for C groups but with Firecracker. So it brings a user experience that just works. It collates everything together that you could ever need to run a normal headless Linux VM, and it does that just about as simply as possible. Now, if you've ever tried to do this on your own, you'll find that many of the guides on Firecracker are out of date, they don't work, or people just haven't really thought about other people's needs beyond their own. With Slicer, we've sort of turned the tide with that. The main way we use it internally, OpenFaaS, is for testing. However, there's so many things that you can do with it, but you can also think of it like a private cloud. So like a cloud, you say what kind of size of VM you want, what networking you want, what size of disk, and then if you need it, you can pass some user data along to pre-install some software. Now on top of that, because Docker images or container images are actually used as a format for the root file system, you can also just create a Docker file, put from at the top, and add all the packages that you want and customize it as much as you like. And that is not what we're going to do now. I'm just going to stand up a new FASD YAML, if you like, for Slicer. And I'm piping a few arguments into this. One of the arguments is to download SSH keys from GitHub. I'm not using that. I'm just auto-detecting one on the device. The image that I'm using is Ubuntu, but there are other images available like Rocky Linux. And this is the new step, which is to just basically create a YAML file like the one you would have copied from the docs before and then run up. Now that has booted. That's how quick it is. We can take a look at the boot log, and maybe if we cat that, less it, you'll see a bunch of stuff from systemd, how long it took to get into user space, etc. Very quick. Now let's SSH into here. And because I am doing this a lot, I'm just going to remove the old host key. And I am in. I've got a full Linux VM. It's got 4 gigs of RAM, that's what I picked. It's got 8 vCPUs, again, that's what I picked. And on LS bulk, you'll see that it has a 30 gig disk, which is another thing that I picked. Now, you can have 1 VM or you can have 100. It's up to you how many you want when you start this. Or you can start with 0 and then you can program it via API using HTTP, curl, Postman, etc. Okay, so OpenFaaS Edge is a version of OpenFaaS that doesn't need Kubernetes. It will go directly into this VM. And earlier today, I was testing some code that with OpenFaaS Edge, when it starts up, if you put functions in a certain folder, it will read each of them in and deploy them. That's what I was testing. And I needed somewhere to do that. Now, I didn't have to go and create a VM on AWS. And if I worked in a company with an IT department, they might have also asked me to raise a ticket. It could have taken a few days. I can create and destroy environments as much as I want, as quick as I like. And I'm just following through the instructions here. See if I can get the menu back on. And what have we got now? So we've done a GitHub login. I missed a step. I'd activate it. And then I'm going to finish the installation. That's it. So it's pretty quick. And if you were running this on the Rocky Linux machine, it would have been just as quick. And you would have then had that Oracle /CentOS /Alma Linux experience, the DNF package manager, OpenFaaS Edge works on both just as well. And we got a full installation. Booted, all the images are pulled. I'm now going to log in to the CLI. And we can list functions. We don't have any just yet. So maybe have a look in the store. There's one in there. Let's go deploy the cows function. And this is a synchronous deploy. Unlike Kubernetes, the API is imperative. And we'll now be able to curl this. And we get a few different cows back. Have a look at what else is in there. If you have a GPU, you can, on Kubernetes, you can deploy NVIDIA, SMI, Olama. Let's do something else, like env function. These are just things to get you started, things to experiment with or for your testing. Now, we can also run functions asynchronously by changing the URL a little bit and then submitting a payload, in this case, an empty payload. And that runs instantly. What you can then do is go in the background and have a look at what services are included in FASD. One of them is a queue worker. So we'll get the logs from the queue worker and tail them. And you can see this is actually using the commercial product, so OpenFaaS standard components and Jetstream. When I do the next curl, there's a tiny delay, and you see it receives the message and it's actually invoked the function, whole thing round tripped. The service command is relatively new, but it will also show you CPU and RAM usage. And if you want, you can put a namespace into there and, for instance, look at the functions in exactly the same way. So that was my very quick demo of Slicer starting up a brand new VM that happened to be on an Intel N100 that I've got just over here. But it could have been on my machine because you can see I'm running Linux on the desktop. This also works on WSL. And it should work on an M3, M4, M5 Mac if you first launch a VM and run Slicer inside of it. So if you've got any questions, let me know. We find this really useful and convenient. It reduces our cloud spend, but it also reduces our reliance on cloud and gives us access to much faster hardware like the machines behind me, which are like Ryzen 9s and an Ampere 96 core processor. It makes a massive difference testing on an NVMe with DDR5 RAM versus whatever you can afford on Amazon. Go to slicervm.com, check it out, see if it's for you, and ask me any questions you like in the comments below.